Hello, you horsemen of the appendicitis. Jim Sterling here, and this is Darksiders Warmastered Edition. And it's a bit of a mouthful. I actually tried to do the intro earlier, like a few seconds ago, and fucked it up because Warmastered Edition is a weird name for a remastered version of a game, and Darksiders on its own is already a bit of an odd name for a game, or indeed anything, so you put them two together, and Darksiders Warmastered Edition just doesn't roll off the tongue. Anyway, I'm playing this right now, mostly because all the big games are done this year in terms of reviews and stuff. So all the main written reviews I want to do this year are over. So I'm going back and having a look at things I may have missed, just things I can leisurely look at and play and write up about, just to keep me occupied and give you all some lovely content to enjoy and consume like worms. And Darksiders Warmastered Edition came out, kind of snuck out on me. As someone who's a big fan of the Darksiders games, I've always had a real fondness for this and Darksiders 2, so I was a little surprised when it came out suddenly without me hearing about it, but here it is. It's been out for a while now. This is kind of, I don't know, kind of old news. I'm not really uploading anything fresh and unique and brand new today, but it does give me an opportunity to talk about Darksiders, which I'm always happy to do. This is a series that's just tragic to me. It's tragic that this series never took off the way I feel it should have. Replaying this as the Warmastered Edition, it still holds up. Like it to me anyway, it holds up incredibly well. The action is simple, the combat I should say is simple but effective. Real meaty, heavy combat, like massive sword being swung and hitting demons and angels. No extravagant combos or spectacles or anything, but it's immediately gratifying. And I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. And you unlock moves and level up your weapons, and you get different sub-weapons and stuff. So there's lots of stuff to get. I love the overall style of it. It's basically, it's the Bible. It's Revelations by way of Warhammer. It's so fucking indulgently grim and cool, in quotes. And there's just something ridiculous about it that I like. Just the big-handed, heavy-set, grunting, manly men doing their things. Plus Mark Hamill's in it, which is always good. So yeah, it's got this real sort of desperate 90s Rob Liefeld thing going on. Joe Mad actually did the artwork for it. And as much as I sound like I'm taking the piss out of it, I really dig the art style, but then I have a fondness for that sort of 90s sort of aesthetic anyway, so that would account for it, for at least some of it. I like big chunky boys, because I am a big chunky boy. I mean, I don't look as good as him, and I certainly didn't look as good as him when I held the Chaos Eater sword. Which I still have. I still have a replica of War's sword somewhere in the house, which is fun, Although it did, it suffered over the years. A little bit of the handle got broken off it, and the blade itself is a bit bent from where I had it stood up for a while, which is a shame, because it's a nice bit of memorabilia, I suppose. Back in the days when THQ would spend all of their money when they had money, they used to send out ridiculous fucking things, replica swords. They made several, I think, at least two, I believe, replica Space Marine outfits. They didn't send those out. They made them and had them at E3 and other trade shows. THQ spent a ton of fucking money back in the day, which is why they lost it all, I think. Because they were so spend happy. Their booths at E3 were ridiculous. Just the amount of expense that must have gone into them. I remember when Darksiders 2 came out, they sent like big, heavy stone headstones to people. I say big, like they weren't life-size. They could put them on a desk, and they engraved the names of various games sort of press people on them. Like, I've got one, again, somewhere. It's got my name on it and my date of death. which it says we died in the apocalypse or something, you know, kitschy like that. I mean, I took it as anyone should take it, as a death threat from THQ. You send out a miniature headstone with someone's year of death on it, and I mean, you, as churlish as I'm being, you could reasonably assume that to be an actual threat on your life. But that's just an example of the kind of ridiculous, weird shit that THQ would send to people, and now they have no money. And you don't really hear about it too much these days. I mean, I certainly don't get stuff, but then again, I'm blacklisted by half the industry. But they don't really send out that kind of shit anymore, which is fiscally good, I think. You know, most people I know in the industry don't really care to have that much shit cluttering up their house anyway. You're just sending people a chore, or a storage problem. But anyway, back to the game. Here's a little sub-boss, the Jailer. This is from, you know, relatively early goings-on in the game, like the first main dungeon in the game. And speaking of dungeon, that's one of the things that really kind of interested me about the game, was the fact that there's not an original idea in it. It is most immediately recognisable as a copy of The Legend of Zelda, albeit grimdark. It's got the same dungeon set up, you know, the same... Hell, it even treats keys the same way. You get a map, you get... like the way checkpoints are saved are similar, the way dungeons are laid out and the puzzles. I mean, look, the thing I'm using right now is basically the boomerang, and you basically get a hook shot and all this stuff. But they also crib ideas from Portal. There's more or less a glorified Portal gun at one point in the game. It chumps the flavour of so many other games, but it does them well. This game serves as a really interesting example of how video games, perhaps more than any other form of entertainment, are able to get away with basically just cribbing all their ideas from elsewhere. You know, if a book or whatever went to the length this does in taking other people's ideas, it'd be accused of plagiarism, if at the very least. But in video games, I guess just because of the mechanical interactive element, they get away with it. And so long as you do them well, that's the big difference. You can rip anything off you like, so long as you rip it off well. And Darksiders, at least as far as I'm concerned, ripped everything off very, very well indeed. And blended them all together to create a game that is incredibly derivative, but still just has its own little flavour of its own. Just the way in which everything was taken and fit together in a way that flowed really well. There's nothing quite like Darksiders, even though Darksiders is exactly like everything else, and that's a back of the box quote. It's not literally. It's not. Anyway, if you've played Zelda, you've done this stuff before, throwing boomerangs and shit into fire to do stuff like that. Bombs, just like Zelda bombs. The controls for anything ranged are a little more fiddly, compared to stuff you're used to these days. As you saw there, I was kind of struggling with it a little bit. You've got to like click in the right stick to aim, and then tag stuff with one shoulder button and throw with another shoulder. It's just a little more convoluted than one expects from games these days. But other than that, like I said, everything holds up well. The puzzles are well done. The dungeons are really nicely designed. The enemies are fun to fight. It's a good game, is what I'm saying, and I'm still as pleased with it today as I was back in the day. And all the remastered changes they've added are good. All the visual improvements they've added to the effects and the resolution, of course, and textures, and it's got all that good stuff, all the good visual polish. So yeah, basically I'm just using this as an excuse to talk about Darksiders, which is a game that, as I said, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that it didn't do all that well. This first game didn't perform particularly hotly. It's probably nowhere near enough to justify the money THQ would have put into it, because like I said, THQ would just hemorrhage money into anything. And Darksiders 2, I distinctly recall reporting on it at the time that its sales were not at all what THQ wanted. And who knows how it's doing now? You know, we've got the remaster from what's now being called THQ Nordic. They did Darksiders 2, and then they went back and did this one. And, you know, who knows if they have plans to do new ones, or, you know, if they did, whether these are going to sell well enough to justify them. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see another Darksiders game. I really would. I'd like to see maybe, you know, a third game with one of the other horsemen. You know, there's still 2 more. There's enough for 2 more games. And I wouldn't be against War or Death coming back. I thought Death in Darksiders 2 was a great character. Just a real dick. Just everything he said just had this sort of dickish contempt to it. War was cool, voiced by Liam O'Brien. This game is actually how I came to know Liam O'Brien, an incredibly talented voice actor. And I reviewed this for Destructoid back in the day, and said that the voice acting was good, and that I liked War's voice acting, even though he sounds like he's straining to need a shit all the time, which is still true. Everything's demon, like that, just like he's one false move away from his turtle head just billowing out of his trouser leg. And Liam O'Brien saw it and commented about it on the social media, and we spoke from there. And yeah, he's cool. It's just me being a bit of a David Cage. Look at these people I know. You know, the game's done now. Pretty much. Just gonna punch him and then my footage is over. Bye!